Hey, welcome to another episode of the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. I'm your co-host, John.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening. It's Amanda.
Welcome, welcome. So today we were recently perusing the dental groups and looking for one of those interesting topics that everybody seems to be talking about. So today's episode, we landed on dental assistants and EFDAs not being producers. What do you think, Amanda?
Yeah, so as you know, those of you that are listening and have listened multiple times, I think that you'll get the feel that John and I are very large, big advocates and true believers on, of course, dental assistants bringing great value to the practice and that we have to be worth our worth in the sense of pay, but also in the sense this when doctors or office managers or whoever is using this quote unquote word producers, it really is labeling, and it seems in the sense of who's important and who's not important, right? So unfortunately, that brings in a huge glitch of morale that is going to be decreased significantly because it looks like to a certain extent, some offices are trying to do this title of importance instead of yet again working as a good old team. So, it's a touchy subject, but of course, different people or different values and different positions with the dental practice are going to bring different levels of what is being produced. And let's be honest, it's a business. So there is an amount of money that naturally has to be produced in a day to day when it comes to the procedures that are being done. And then, of course, on the other side of things, the collections when it comes to, whoever's doing the collecting of money with insurance or obviously co-pays at your front office at checkout, things like that. So in order to make our hourly wage or to receive our Christmas bonuses or to receive our scrub allowances, there obviously has to be production made. And we all are part of that, right? So one of the things I think of just right away that I know, John, obviously we teach in class is that when we're talking about charting and we have a number 4 MO that is a dental assistant we assist with, and that MO turns into an MODBL, then we discuss about how that fee increases from, let's just say $150 to now 185. I have no idea. I don't memorize fees, and obviously all of our fees all across the country are different. But as a dental assistant, naturally paying attention to that and saying, hey, Dr. Smith, I see that turned in, this is not an MOD or an MO according to this route slip or what's on the schedule. Uh, more services were covered. Therefore, I'll change the code for insurances, a fee to the patient based on those services. So that right away is more production in that appointment. So to say on who's naturally the producer, what is that? What I don't, what does that even mean? That producer needs to or should get more money? Uh,
Well, I think, we're in this day and age with, hygiene, for example, they're producers, but it goes on, well, if I take insurance, hygiene, the numbers always that we see is hygiene should be producing three times what they make, right? That's what justifies them as a producer. And that's obviously becoming more and more difficult to achieve because if an office takes a lot of heavy insurance, then the reimbursements haven't gone up, but yet, we've seen hygiene wages go up. So for someone to, turn that around and say, well, yeah, they're a producer, but they're not producing at the rate I need them to. So it's very clear that hygiene has its own column and hygiene produces, like, you can see definitively what a hygienist makes as a producer. Now, dentists obviously take advantage of having an assistant, and this is where there's a lot of offense going on because, as assistants, as EFDAs, we're contributing to the doctor's success, but then some dentists are kind of, saying by the wayside, well, you're not a producer. It's like, even though we add value, and, I saw in a thread some assistants were justifying it, saying, I'm the one explaining treatment. I'm the one, basically selling the treatment, but then I'm being told that I'm not valuable because I'm not a producer. I'm helping
Yeah, I mean, it's
I'm
it's
helping
a
I'm helping along the way. Think about if you have a couple step process, right? You have step one, patient comes in, you take the x-rays, but you're getting no credit, right? Then step two, you're assisting on the exam. Once again, you're not getting any credit, right? Step three, patient comes back, you're doing the treatment, but once again, guess what? You're not getting any of the credit. Step four, you're rescheduling that patient. As an assistant, sometimes in the back, we're rescheduling that patient. Some assistants are even getting roped into discussing insurance, copays, collecting payment. So now you have a 4 and 5 step process that you have started from start to finish. And along the way, you're basically being told that, hey, thanks, but, unfortunately, you don't add anything because you're not a producer, right? And it's one of those, it's one of those head scratchers. Honestly, we here we are uplifting assistants and we're like, hey, you're doing a great job and you're going to do so many great things and you're an asset to your office. And then it's like one doctor comes along the way and just completely ruins that whole thing by, belittling someone. And it's like, what are you really getting out of belittling someone unless it's strictly to put it in their mind to keep them down, to keep their wage down, and also to kind of keep them in check. Keep them there to the point where they say, well, I'm really not worth anything, so I might as well just stay at this job.
Right. I mean, it's as we know that our words is something that, can really make a difference in our mindset of our day. I think my mindset Monday social media post today was about encouragement of I don't know why Monday today of all days I did that, but can you imagine how much the day-to-day shift of work outside of even just your normal life would benefit as encouragement more than just belittling and creating in a sense these titles of why has this term in a sense come up in dentistry and why now is it titled or attached to a title. Excuse me. Of course, I'm an EFTA, so I see also on social media and some doctors will say, well, you're as though a 50% producer because the doctor, for instance, a 9 o'clock patient, I have 4 or 5 fillings, MOD, MODB, a facial, lingual, whatever fillings on fillings. The doctor has, say, a crown prep at 9 o'clock as well. So the doctor numbs his or her crown prep, comes in and numbs my restorative patient, go and does the crown prep. Maybe then that dental assistant helps move along the temp crown. The doctor then comes back into my room, preps the fillings, and then I continue to fill and polish and make my final adjustments. The doctor checks my work and, dismisses the patient. That my column as an EFTA has a value of, in a sense, producing. I don't even use that word in my day-to-day work, of course, of
Right,
working with colleagues. I'm
right.
like, oh, get out of here. I'm the producer, not you. I don't need help from another DA because I'm producing for the day. And it doesn't even, it's one of those situations that has caused a lot of tension in the dental community. Me personally, it doesn't even ever cross my mind.
Right. It doesn't
Uh,
register. The word doesn't register in our
no.
day. So when it does come up, you're just like, wait, what?
What? I mean,
You're like, people
you're
think like that?
Now, mind you, at some offices, when you get your pay, when I get my pay, that I'm given a printout of what my column produced for that practice during the days that I worked during the last 2 weeks to receive my paycheck, and it's pretty substantial. I don't even work there full time, but I am always like, oh, it is a reminder of like, oh wow, if I imagine if everybody would have showed up, Pennsylvania weather, we've had a ton of snow lately, the cold, so how much I try to add on. I definitely, and of course, John and I, our perspective of being a business and producing is, what we think of this now is probably not how we thought 15 years ago. There's days that, let's be honest, we all like a slow day, when we've been run to the meal rampant and can't get a lunch or go to the restroom or whatever it may be. But I just think that let's just get back on track of we have a schedule, we have a team, we can work together as a team no matter what title you are, and help each other get through the day pleasantly, and not be in this battle of, well, I'm the assistant of Dr. Smith and you're the assistant of Dr. Ballou, and my doctor's not busy and your doctor is, but I have downtime, but I'm not helping you because that doctor's not, I'm not the assistant of that doctor. It's stuff like that that just becomes, come on now. Are we part of the Mean Girls Club, or are we trying to be grown adults here and yet again encourage and help? And I get, like, we both have been on the side of being way taken advantage of. When that's a whole other podcast probably. But when we on the other side of things, but trying to keep things going and flowing and eliminating this tiered whatever title on who's producers and who isn't. Uh I guess we could also, in the sense, I like that office provides me with what, in the sense, I helped produce, or what I, in the sense, charged out under my code as an EFDA for that office. It's a big wake up call for me, how high or how low that number really can be. That I think that if you're, I think that would be a great insight for your hygienist to see as well. So if offices don't do that, I know we are very well of some offices that do that, especially during their review time of potential negotiating of wages. But I think that's a great aspect to say, well, in the last 2 weeks, this is what your hourly rate is. As we know, we're seeing some really high hourly wages that are in dentistry right now, with especially a hygienist. So that's causing a riff and a battle in amongst itself.
Yeah.
But let's look at this number that is being produced.
Well, let me ask you this, Amanda, and this is just a quick thought that popped in my head because I'm always like trying to relate it and maybe see the other side of it, not only for myself, but maybe someone else. All right. So let's say that, hygienists, AFTAs, mostly hygienists, I'm thinking from a standpoint of is they produce X amount. And let's say at the 3/4 mark of the year, they sit down and they go over the numbers. And this office takes a lot of insurance because we see a lot of hygienists say, well, why is it my fault that you take insurance that decreases the value of my work so much, right? You typically don't hear that from an associate dentist who's
No.
paid on collections, but you hear it a lot. The hygienists are very defensive, and rightfully so, in a sense of they're the ones who feel like they're constantly on the attack. But let's say that it's an office that takes insurance, so much is written off, and now they're saying, well, you don't produce enough, therefore you're not worth it. And then the argument is, well, hygiene is what brings people in, and it kind of opens up the gate for all this other treatment, right? And some
Mhm.
some dentists say, I don't care what the position is. If I'm losing money at that position, it doesn't mean value to me, even if it's kind of getting people in the door, right?
Mhm.
So my thought process was, let's say you're a waitress and it's Tuesday night spaghetti night, and now that spaghetti is discounted to the point where your pay is affected, your tips are affected, and it's kind of like, man, I hate these spaghetti nights. It's bringing people in, it's bringing more people in, but I'm doing more work for less money.
Mhm.
Okay. So you see the parallel comparison
Oh
I
yeah.
make here as far as it's 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 bringing people in, but in the same sense, you're doing more work for less money. So what is the right answer? The business made a decision to, hey, we're going to go ahead and open up the floodgates on these spaghetti nights and these 25% off coupons. So now the staff is working harder for less money. So who is that really fair to? Like as a business owner, you're obviously thinking, okay, let's get this money in here. But now your staff feels like, their worth is a lot less because now, of course, they're being belittled for a business decision that was made.
I've been there, done that as a waitress myself. I couldn't stand karaoke night when it was used to bring in people because then those sticking people sat at those karaoke tables all night long and didn't have the turnover. You don't make any money as a waitress on karaoke night. So just a FYI for you karaokeers, if you're tip your waitress based on how many hours you're sitting at that table.
Yeah,
But
and that's a bad thing too. Like, I know you've worked a lot in the, restaurant industry. I haven't, but you do hear these restaurants that charge, hey, if you're not spending so much an hour, you need to get out of here. And then other places are perfectly fine with you, you know, sitting there. My wife worked at a sports bar, and it was like if somebody sat there for 4 hours and watched a football game and drank one beer, even though they took up a whole table, and then they'd give her like a $3 or $4 tip.
exactly.
Like, yeah, I mean, as a business owner, you got to be like, hey, I got to take care of my people. Like, even if you decide as a business, hey, I'm not going to hassle these people, you should still say, well, this is what my server would make an hour off this table. Like, you should at least charge the person that to take care of your staff. And
Yeah.
this goes back to you have to take care of your staff, plain and
You
simple.
have to take care of your staff. And I think from a dental assistant, hygienist, EFDA, front office, treatment coordinator, office manager, I mean, the umpteen million positions it could be in a dental practice. There's still a business owner that's up here. It is what it is. There's
Right.
still a captain. There's
Yeah.
still a warden. There's still
Yeah.
a president.
El Capitan is in charge, you
Yeah,
know,
there's still a CEO.
but
You know,
if you
but
make a business decision and obviously it's affecting your staff's ability to make money, which let's face it, that's why they're there. You may be the best boss in the world, but at the end of the day, if it's affecting their paycheck, they're going to leave.
absolutely.
The problem is when you belittle those people on the way out the door, you know, and it's pretty much like, well, if you don't like it, leave. Okay, well, I'm leaving. Then why? Then what's, it's unfortunate they're leaving, but then you're like, well, people don't want to work. I can't find anybody who's reliable. And it just, snowballs from there that unfortunately it's like you need to get out of that negative mindset and, create a positive culture to where you're taking care of your patients, taking care of your customers, taking care of your staff because this whole you're not a producer. If you don't like it, leave. I'm the boss. It's crazy. And you recently had access to a post from a dentist group where the dentists were we always tell our students, hey, dentists are people too, right? Dentists are people too. Sometimes their problems are just magnified a little bit differently because of maybe the finances they bring in or just their educational background, whatever it is. But recently we saw a post where dentists were kind of like, when's the last time your staff said you did a good job? You know,
Right.
you know,
I,
it's
I, I chuckled. I chuckled for a couple hours. I'm not one to honestly go back to like, oh, I can't wait to see what everybody else. I was back at that post like three or four times. And
what's the consensus? Like, does Dennis want a pat on the back? Or
Well, I saw a couple comments like, oh, and I feel like I can validate all of these answers of and it honestly goes back to my encouragement in the sense of my post for the day or what I said earlier is that I don't care who you are when it comes to what position you hold in just in life, that we all can benefit and we all thrive on some sort of encouragement or value or hey, thank you. John and I are always advocates of don't forget to say thank you. Thank you for your time. That was one of the things that came up a lot in that post. Like, oh, I know at the end of the day, I have a lot of my staff that will come in and they definitely always make sure like they greet me in the morning. hey, good morning, as you're walking by an office door. Hey, have a good night. Thank you. See you tomorrow. It's very
Yeah, like it is very important to, some people. If you haven't had a chance, there's a book called the Five Love Languages, and that author, that is based on marriage counseling, that initial release.
okay.
He's recently written a book about employer-employee relationship. Have you read that book, Amanda?
I haven't read that book,
Oh,
but
it's phenomenal because, all the years he was a marriage counselor, he basically broke down that everybody would come in and complain about the same stuff. So he was like, "Hey, I got to write a book on this because it's the same material over and over again." So he says there's five languages of love that each person needs. Um, there's five different categories. So you might not necessarily need all five, but you might need those words of encouragement. You might need to see financial compensation. You might need to see, in a marriage, physical touch, definitely not the employer-employee relationship. So but then he started breaking down employers employees. So it is a new book out on the market, but if you're an owner of a business or even a manager, I would strongly suggest looking into something like this because chances are it could probably solve a lot of your problems with your head scratching as far as, hey, why doesn't anybody want to be here? Or, I joke all the time about the endo at 4:30. And, that's definitely one thing that when I think about like love languages, my time is very precious to me, you know? And if we're supposed to be done at 5 o'clock, and a patient who you've been telling for the last year or two to get something taken care of, now they call and you put them in at 4:30 and we're doing emergency procedure and you keep me there till 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I'm gonna miss my kid's basketball game, whatever it is. Like these are things that, whenever the dentist is like, hey, nobody's told me good job lately. Like I worked with a dentist, he wouldn't even ask. He wouldn't even say like, "Hey, can you stay late?" It was just, "Hey, here's an endo, we're doing it now." And I just had this look like, "You got to be kidding me," Like I really
Mhm.
didn't. I feel like now I would speak up, but I mean, this was also 15 years ago where I was just kind of like, "Okay, I need to keep my job." So,
Right.
but now it's like, having family and knowing how important those things are, and a lot of that stuff has come to light that hey, that time is precious. When you're on your deathbed, you're never going to be like, oh, I'm so glad I worked all that time. You're immediately going to start thinking about how, you missed that play, or, you weren't there more for, your kids' functions, or, putting together soccer banquets, or, whatever it is. It's
Yeah,
something
it
that
just
I can't praise an office enough whenever they say, hey, you know what? Do whatever you can, make sure you make that thing you know, um, I think it's truly amazing when an office is flexible to the point where it's like, instead of someone taking a whole day off, a lot of times people just want to run to the school, see their kid, do the worst rendition of whatever play it is, and come back to work. Like if you just simply work with that team member and say, instead of them taking off a half or a whole day, hey, what's going on? Yeah, yeah, please go and come back. The place will not burn down within an hour, right?
correct.
It's
Right.
like it's like no matter, and I've worked at places before, they tell everyone, hey, go ahead and take off whenever you want, as long as everybody else is flexible and doesn't complain. I'll never deny a time off request. And
Hmm.
I think that was awesome because it's like, even though those days where I was very, very shorthanded, I just thought to myself, okay, well, this is good because when I went off, I'm not going to be told no.
Hmm.
And to me, that's a great sign of leadership. You just tell people right away, hey, listen, we're going to work hard some days, but I want everybody to get out there and experience those things and, go do what you want to do. Like whether it's, you know, some people take off and it's like, oh, I got to take my cat, for a manicure. And it's like, they're taking off for what? It's like the most ridiculous thing. But hey, if that's what makes your time happy, then go for it. If you want to go to the movie theater by yourself for 2 hours, go for it. I'm not going to judge. Like, it's your time. Do whatever you want with your time.
Yeah, and I think as a business owner, the dentist being involved and your staff morale and, in a sense, morning meetings or conversation or hey, you're behind, let me clean up this room. I can take this bin of instruments to the sterilization area. These are all things that can make a huge difference with instead of doing this division of producers, non-producers, DAs, EFDAs, hygienists, office manager, whoever it is, that, this whole, let's just revamp, come back together. Post-pandemic has helped dentistry to a certain extent of bringing to light some of the things of, that maybe some doctors were really taking advantage of, staff and low pay over a very long period of time. So our wages have gotten better. But, on the other side of things that I definitely have seen a huge divide because of but because of all the aspects of dentistry of, we're behind because of the pandemic, and then now, with social media, that there's this much more open conversation that I think these are issues that have always been there. Now, actually, with our social media life, now everybody just knows about it. So, and I think that's the way of the world. I think there's a lot of these issues that we're also focused on now that, oh my gosh, can you believe whatever? It's not new news. It's just that social media has opened it up that now we know all these things about other people. And it's also bringing into light, like, oh, wait a second, you're the next town over and I'm making $15 an hour as a dental assistant after 20 years and you're making $27 an hour as a dental assistant after 20 years, then yeah, I mean, it's going to be like, wait a second, I'm doing all these duties and I'm bringing all this value to the practice, but my hourly rate is definitely not being reciprocated. Uh, and so it's whether no matter what your job title is, I hope, and, I just encourage each other, help each other get back to the basics and get back to that team building, which is so, so, so important actually in your aspect. Let's have an enjoyable day at work, continue loving your career, laughing at whatever you got to laugh at to get through some of those stressful days and get through the week. Not to rush life, but you might as well make the best of it while you're there, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think as a dental assistant, why don't you give that a try? Why don't you pay your dentist a compliment, like
Yeah.
just throw it out there. I want to say I read this years ago and I did say it and my doctor looked at me like, who this? Kind of like what is happening here, and I like to think I'm a pretty positive person and I'm that way with everyone, but I did think like, oh, maybe I don't tell my doctor, good job enough. And the doctor I worked with recently, I would tell her all the time, like, hey, that's a beautiful crown prep. And she was a little bit taken back because obviously she had never been told that before. And she was like, hey, thanks. That means, because it's like they want that validation too. I mean, they went to
Oh,
school
yeah.
years and, they got screamed at and probably got chairs thrown at them throughout school with their instructors. And who has really told them good job, so it probably wouldn't hurt to at least try it and see, but we thought it was a pretty interesting concept of maybe that's why there's no positive reinforcement coming from them because they don't get it from
Mhm.
anyone, to begin with.
Well, one of those doctors on that thread also said that he took a staff for a spa day last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever. Now, I do not know if it was 3 people, 10 people, 30 people, probably not 30, let's be honest. But he said he only received one thank you. I think, my opinion, that is very shameful on the
Yeah.
staff. Very. If your office is buying lunch today, and at the end of the day, you can't say, hey, bye, thank you for lunch.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
I do not find any shame on that doctor never buying lunch again.
Right.
Yeah, I did the same. I worked for an office that we all pitched in and got the doctor a Christmas gift. I worked there for years, never once. The last 2 years I worked there, I said, absolutely not. I'm not giving my $50 towards the $500 gift card that that doctor would receive because for 5 or 6 years that I worked there, never once got a thank you for the Christmas gift. So I stopped giving it. I was like,
Yeah. And
no, absolutely not.
yeah, I mean it's completely understandable because you feel unappreciated, and that's what happens with, trying to get, dental assistants and dental staff. I know this comes up every year at Christmas. We bring this up like, hey, don't forget to say thank you. And it's kind of like, this hierarchy of, oh, well,
Yeah.
they go to this beautiful vacation home and they're giving me $100. Well, I mean, it's $100. It's like,
I mean, a staff member making $40,000 a year probably can't afford to pay $7,000 for a vacation home. So let's just,
yeah,
uh, let's think about. I think doctors too, we could go on and on, but in the sense, I think when you're doing things for your staff, I would say also don't be repetitive because now we're also human nature that then our human nature intention is then unfortunately then I hate to say expect it, but like, oh my gosh, I've worked here for 10 years and every year I got X at Christmas or I got a cake at my birthday with a bottle of wine and now nobody does it.
right.
So,
Yeah.
I say changing things up, because then your staff never is expecting the same thing because every year you've done it something different. So I think that's just a great, easy way of you might have to think of different ideas throughout your year when you giving bonuses or not or birthday whatever may have you, but switching things up and then it doesn't become this quote unquote expectation.
Yeah. So I think hopefully we brought some stuff to light as far as everyone's thought process with dental assistants and EFDAs, producers or not. Uh, you know, we know the technical definition, but we like to get some smoke going on those brains every once in a while. So that's kind of our thought for today. So we truly hope that you enjoyed today's podcast.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Stand tall, stand out, continue to keep your mind open. And as we know, training is our future. So continue learning. And thank you for listening. And we hope maybe here in 2025 we get some guests on this podcast. We're gonna shake it up soon.
Yeah, of course. If you are interested in being a guest on the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast, or you have an idea for a topic, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at cornerstonedainstructors@gmail.com. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can search for Cornerstone Dental Assistant Academy, or of course, the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. Thank you very much, and we will see you on the next episode.
Next time.